Paying to put your car on the road has been optional in Denver for a while. That free ride ends briefly. The stakes for Colorado. A look tonight at Donald Trump's plans for our state's public lands, air, and water.
They want to remove protections from public lands in multiple ways.
The Great American Convoy rides into Frederick, a man on a mission inviting Coloradans to come along for a bit. And RTD's A-Line can now hang a banner saying 50 million satisfied customers. Correction, 50 million customers. Because y'all remember the start that train got off to. But together, let's celebrate what's next.
If you want to drive around with expired license plates, you used to be cool if you just confined your travels to Denver, where the city didn't really care about that kind of thing. But Denver is going to try caring about expired plates, at least for a while. Here's Mark Salinger with that.
Having expired license plates is illegal everywhere, but whether or not you'll get a ticket for it might just depend on what side of the street you're on. Here in Denver, police just started handing out tickets for expired tags yesterday. Over here in Aurora, cracking down on those expired plates, that was the focus earlier this summer.
Really, it's just an acknowledgement that, yes, this is something that we do need to get a hold of in our community.
For all the people avoiding paying to register their car, avoiding getting caught is all about where they drive.
There is no state legislation as it relates to low-level violations.
Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas knows it's up to each individual department to decide whether to pull people over for certain low-level offenses, like driving with expired plates.
I am aware of the fact that the Aurora took a pretty strong stance as it relates to expired registrations.
Aurora police gave out hundreds of tickets earlier this summer when they announced they'd begin pulling people over solely for having old tags. DPD said they wouldn't do the same at the time. That changed this week.
Previously, according to the policy, there would have had to have been something else that would have prompted an officer to pull someone over for that particular offense.
The rules and protocols are different everywhere and even change from month to month, which is part of the reason why some smaller police departments give out far more tickets for expired tags than other, much bigger ones. In Denver, 982 tickets have been issued since the beginning of this year. Compare that to places like the much smaller Commerce City Police Department, where the number of tickets has already surpassed 1,300 this year. In Arapahoe County, the Sheriff's Office is already at more than 1,500 citations. In Douglas County, there's almost 1,700.
It's important to focus on violent crime. It's important to focus on traffic safety violations. But I also think it's important to listen to your community and understand that there's a concern as it relates to expired registrations.
So back in 2023, last year, Colorado passed a new law to try and encourage people who were moving to the state to actually register their cars here and pay taxes. So we wanted to know how that's been going so far, how much money the state has collected in back taxes. Turns out, we were told today, Kyle, the state does not keep track of that.
Oh, I mean, that seems like useful information. I feel like we all know people that are just like, yeah, when did you move here? 3 years ago. That's funny, you still have out-of-state plates.
Yeah, you still have your Tennessee plate or whatever.
Yeah, how about that?
3 years later, but at the end of the day, like, everybody wants to see that the person in front of them driving down the street is paying the same taxes, paying the same registration fees as they are. If the state's not keeping track of all of those people who are moving to Colorado and not paying the Colorado registration fees, then I don't know how we determine whether or not that law has been working.
Yeah, I mean, I live and work in the city of Denver. I'm amazed at the number of people I see driving around
There's a lot.
without plates at all. Like,
Exactly.
What is this Mad Max stuff we've got going on? All right, Mark, thank you. A Coloradan at the center of election rigging conspiracy theories is on trial this week, facing claims that his door-to-door effort to uncover voter fraud in 2020 was actually voter intimidation and a violation of the Ku Klux Klan Act. But Sean Smith says he and his fellow organizers were just canvassing. Smith is one of the founders of the U.S. Election Integrity Project, a door-to-door effort to discover election fraud by asking more than 9,000 voters about their voter registration and their voter record. Smith has since claimed without proof that he has evidence of crimes by Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold and that anyone involved in election fraud, quote, deserves to hang. This week, a federal judge in Colorado is hearing a lawsuit from the NAACP and the League of Women Voters, who argue that volunteers for this election integrity project intimidated voters by accusing them of fraud, taking pictures of their homes, and carrying guns as they went door-to-door questioning people. Our partners at Colorado Politics were in court where defendants argued that the project was a peaceful effort, and their work was protected by the First Amendment. That trial is expected to continue through the week. So it's no exaggeration to say that the president can have an impact on the air we breathe, the water we drink, where we can even set foot in Colorado. The president has the power to set aside land, limiting how Coloradans can use it. Tonight we continue our in-depth series on how America's choice for president will impact our state specifically. This is Decision 2024, the stakes for Colorado. Tonight our Marshall Zellinger looks at Donald Trump's plans for Colorado's air, land, and water.
The outdoors are an escape. Scenery, recreation, and perhaps the subtle sound of drill baby drill.
Nobody has more liquid gold under their feet than the United States of America, and we will use it and profit by it.
Utilizing federal public lands for energy independence was the main focus in the Department of Interior section of Project 2025, the part written by former Bureau of Land Management Acting Director William Perry Penley.
My suggestion is that President Trump, when he comes in, do what he did when he was there the first time, which is aggressively issue oil and gas leases.
Penley is also outspoken about wanting to do away with the Antiquities Act, which allows presidents to designate national monuments, like President Obama did with Browns Canyon in 2015 and President Biden did with Camp Hale in 2022.
The Biden administration has totally redefined the word conservation. President Biden and his team have closed the lands to everybody, not just oil and gas operations, but the logging and the mining, the ranching and the stock raising and to off-road vehicle activity and recreation.
Just opening up public lands to every form of recreation, and Mr. Penley may be leaning towards motorized recreation. That is going to have the most impact on public lands habitat.
David Lean is a hunter and conservationist concerned about the impact on elk herds and how Penley's recommendations would allow for more use of federal public lands.
We need to protect more habitat in order to help us manage all of those potential impacts better. They have to be managed, and in some cases, certain activities would only be limited in certain places to help, maintain habitat for wildlife.
Other environmental changes could target the Environmental Protection Agency, which Trump has previously said he wants to get rid of in almost every form. And last week, Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert called for the EPA budget to be cut to zero.
I'm concerned about the Clean Air Act. I'm concerned about the Clean Water Act. I'm concerned about soil regulations.
Environmental justice leader Ian Thomas Tafoya is also concerned about what happens to historically marginalized communities if Trump follows through and cancels clean energy programs that move industries away from fossil fuels.
The city of Commerce City, Adams County, North Denver isn't going to have the resources they need to upgrade the windows for communities, to make sure that all of those trucks that are basically coming out of an inland port in North Denver won't electrify. It'll just continue to be more fossil fuel infrastructure.
Project 2025, in the 992 pages, also calls out NOAA and the National Weather Service, calling them both the main drivers of the climate change alarm industry, and as such, is harmful to future U.S. prosperity. And Kyle, under the proposal, the National Weather Service would stop issuing forecasts unless they could just sell it and commercialize it.
Yeah, with the idea that you can get your forecast from someplace else. Interesting. I mean, a lot of places like our meteorologist 9 News collaborate with the National Weather Service and their resources to put together those forecasts. It is interesting, though, kind of the whiplash that you see in environmental regulations, right? Obama does one thing, and then Trump changes it back, and then Biden changes it back, and a lot of what they're talking about is just flipping it back one more time.
Sure, and it's interesting in Colorado, we're kind of insulated from some of that because of the Democratic governor and the Democratic legislature. So some of those things will stay constant in Colorado, but where federal land touches the state, that's where you get this whiplash effect. But overall, in the state, you may see policies locally that change nationally.
Marshall, thank you. Some of the same Colorado Republicans who criticized Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo for paying herself a salary from campaign funds, those same folks are now explaining why it is okay that her Republican opponent Gabe Evans is doing the same thing. You might think this is a complicated argument, but let me paraphrase what they're saying. It's bad when the other side does it, but it's fine when their side does it. Makes total sense when you look at it that way. Credit to the Colorado Sun's Jesse Paul for first noticing this in campaign finance reports. Republican State Rep Gabe Evans is paying himself a $1,600 a month salary out of his federal campaign account. This is totally legal. In fact, Evans' opponent, Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo, did the same thing during her first campaign for Congress, 2022. She paid herself more than $40,000 over the course of the entire campaign. So at that time, Alan Philp, campaign spokesperson for Caraveo's Republican opponent, criticized her for, quote, not making any personal sacrifice. Well, would you believe that that same dude, Alan Philp, now works for Caraveo's opponent this time, the guy who's taking the salary? And he told us it's okay that Gabe Evans is doing what he criticized Caraveo for because Evans has a family to support.
People tend to have an opinion about rattlesnakes, so they either really hate them or they really love them.
So let's take a trip to the mega den. It's full of snakes, and some of those snakes are full of even more snakes. And a cross-country biker convoy roars into Colorado in support of wounded veterans. That's next. Rattlesnakes don't have a great reputation, and maybe that would change if we just spent more time with them, hanging out, exchanging tales in their mega den. Scientists at California Polytech have set up a live stream camera that's pointed at a snake den in Colorado so that people can watch all those snakes do snake stuff. Researchers say their Project Rattle has two goals: to observe the snake's behavior without disturbing them and to change people's perspective on snakes.
We have a number of people who say, I didn't like snakes, or I don't like snakes, but this shows me that they're not that bad, that they're gentle animals that just want to be left alone to eat their rodents and care for their babies in peace. It's important that if we don't necessarily admire them, that we at least respect them.
The den is in a location in northern Colorado that they are not disclosing. They say it's on private land. They're not saying where it is because have you met humans, right? A lot of them aren't super. This is a community science project that's funded by donations. People who watch online are encouraged to share what they see in terms of the snake behavior in the mega den. They say right now the den is filled with pregnant snakes expected to have their baby snakes. You know what a baby snake is called? Snakelet. They're expected to have their snakelets next month. Kathy Sabin, they're called snakelets.
I'm just amazed at how they blend into their natural surroundings. It would be impossible to see them until you actually were right there. Okay, we are tracking cooler weather and scattered showers and thunderstorms, which is a nice change from the hot, dry weather. And we need every drop of rain as we're running a bit behind in terms of precipitation. Some of the storms did reach severe limits in southeastern Colorado. Temperatures have cooled back to the mid-70s in Denver, 70 in Lamar, still toasty warm in northeastern Colorado. But the winds are transporting in some moisture in the mid layers of the atmosphere. That's helping to fuel these storms that are tracking and moving from west to east. The heavier storms are south of Burlington into the La Junta and Lamar areas, but there's more moisture upstream. So Denver, we could still see additional rain showers yet tonight. As we look at southeastern Colorado, these storms are moving into a severe thunderstorm watch that's in effect until midnight. And we do have a couple of storms that are severe simply because of the wind gust potential to 60 and 70 miles per hour and the hail potential around Campo, Springfield, Lamar, and La Junta. Again, Denver, a few rain showers today, a few more tomorrow. We're just in that marginal threat for severe weather. These storms move out, but we're going to do this all over again tomorrow. We start with sunshine, foothill storms by 2, between 3 and 6, widely scattered storms will produce the threat of heavy rain and maybe even a little bit of hail. Comfortable evening ahead for you with temperatures in the 70s. Coolest day of the week coming up tomorrow with a high of 85, then back to the low 90s on Thursday and Friday.
Basically, I'm like Forrest Gump on a motorcycle, right? So I ride around the country and people join me and ride with me as long as they can.
Forrest had his feet, he's got his wheels. Going cross country to benefit veterans, and like Forrest, he's drawing a following. And it is a milestone that I never thought I would live to see. RTD's A-Line is celebrating 50 million riders. That's next. If you saw a swarm of motorcyclists riding up I-25 near Frederick this afternoon, here's the story on that.
We're riding around the country, raising money for the Wounded Warrior Projects, trying to help out some of our veterans that are having battles right here on our own soil every day. I never served in the military, and in my late 30s, I realized, that I really need to do something for my country since I didn't serve. And since then, I've been putting together charity rides all across the country, trying to raise money for veterans. Basically, I'm like Forrest Gump on a motorcycle, right? So I ride around the country and people join me and ride with me as long as they can.
You feel like you're doing something, you're just part of a big group that's doing something cool, and I've followed Adam for a couple of years on YouTube and might as well contribute to what he's doing. So it looked like a good cause to me. Bikers are all pretty much a good community, you know. Bikers, motorcyclists, whatever, we all kind of look out for each other.
So what the Convoy does is it stops at Harley-Davidson dealerships across the country. And at each dealership, we invite people to join us and make a donation to the Wounded Warrior Project. 100% of that donation goes directly to the Wounded Warrior Project. And together this year, we hope to raise over $200,000. Often people ask me why I'm doing this if I didn't serve. And I kind of coined a little statement that I like to share with people. And that is, I believe if you did not serve in your military, you should find time to serve those who did. And that's what we're out here doing today.
Remember back to when RTD's A-Line launched. That train was a struggle bus. Now the thing's a Dreamliner. Train to the Plane is celebrating its 50 millionth passenger this month. It has RTD's best on-time performance of any rail line in the network. Of course, I'm old enough and you're old enough to remember when passengers were getting stranded on that thing shortly after launch, when they had to walk off of overpasses, when the train would break down, the flaggers that were required at the crossings because federal regulators didn't think the crossings were safe, the horns blowing through neighborhoods long after they were supposed to be in their quiet period, and the head of RTD telling us at 9 News that we just didn't know how trains worked. But you know what? RTD stuck it out. And passengers did too. So now we can celebrate the 50 millionth passenger milestone today. 50 million people, of which I should note I have been one. History is being made on RTD's formerly troubled A-Line at this hour. The train to the plane, subject of much disdain, regained some reign in its domain as flaggers now refrain from blocking lanes.
For 2 years since the A-Line has been in service, you've seen flaggers at all these crossings.
Please clap. RTD would really like you to congratulate it for finally turning off the blaring train horns on the A-Line. It's only 3 years past due. So I will ask you, is the A-Line working at all? And the answer, according to federal regulators, is no. I tell you what, I rode that train for years before I ever set foot on board. But these days, it's a bunch of other RTD lines that are the struggle buses. It's the light rail trains on the E, the H, the R, the D lines that are crawling along at 10 miles per hour while RTD makes track repairs. But that A line is golden. Doesn't go to golden, it's the A line. But what do you say? For old time's sake, let's roll the tape and ask the question. Is the A line working today? Yes. It is 50 million mostly satisfied customers. Also, why has Marshall not aged since the show has come on the air? I have aged. Marshall has not aged. Thank you, Marilyn. Feedback's next. A lot of feedback tonight on Denver cracking down on expired license plates. A text. Wonder how many people driving with expired license plates are driving without insurance and putting us all at risk. When I see the cars straight without plates, I'm always like, give them room, baby, give them room. That is not a consequence-minded individual. You know what I'm saying? Randy says, is your beard a political statement? Suppose it was. What would it say?